I brought a friend. His name is Daniel Ellsberg. And we brought the genius who brought this to the screen, Rick Goldsmith. Rick, come on up here. You sit there, Rick, you sit over there. Okay. Dan, do you see any difference that what took place when you were in the trenches on this issue and what we see now, whether it's in the media or whether it's with whistleblowers? Your comments.
There really isn't a lot of difference in the, I'm sorry to say, in what we're seeing in the White House or Congress or the media at this point from then. And one real difference, of course, is not a factor for hopefulness at the moment, and that is the absence of the kind of movement that we had. People say that's because of the draft, but really it was a movement that started before that, certainly with the civil rights movement, and even in some ways before that with the actions against the House Un-American Activities Committee, and various ways. Before the draft really hit, there was a very large youth movement, mainly. There wasn't very much of a grown-up or post-college movement, but there was a great interest in changing the world for the better, people believing that they could, and acting as if they could. And they did. Now, we don't see that now. I don't know entirely why, what the difference is on the campuses. And the grown-ups, if let's use that phrase, are not filling that gap. Just a year ago, I asked my friend Mike Gravel, apropos of the performance of the Congress in 2007 and 2008, after the hopes that I had in the election of 2006, that it would make some difference to have Democrats in control. And not seeing that, I asked Mike, do you think that the Congress today, congresspersons are extraordinarily cowardly? And he said, no, ordinarily cowardly. They were just the same 40 years ago. And that's pretty much the same. But you know, when it is hard to look at the scene today and think of specific bases for hope. After the performance of Barack Obama in the last year, that was certainly a solid basis for hope, one thought. A year ago, it's not looking that way to me now, per se. What I said, I just heard myself saying in the film, don't leave it to the president, don't count on the president, and that remains true. What could a movement possibly achieve were we to get one today? Well, when I feel most hopeless, and there are times like that, can you hear me in the back? Yeah, okay. I remind myself that since this happened, the Berlin Wall came down, 1989. The Mandela, who's just celebrated in South Africa, the fact that he was out of prison exactly 20 years ago. I think actually yesterday was the anniversary. Mm-hmm. And the peaceful transition in South Africa. Now, I know of no one who thought either of those was possible. It wasn't a question they thought it unlikely. It just didn't even occur to anyone. And if it had, they would have said, by our understanding of the world, at this time, that's impossible. It's not impossible. So we have seen positive miracles happen in both cases, with the essential role of masses of people who woke up and took risks. Think of the Havels and the others in East Europe and in the Soviet Union, who took risks. It seemed an absolutely hopeless cause for a long time. And in South Africa, the same. There have even been changes elsewhere, in Portugal, Spain, and elsewhere, and now in Latin America, that just did not seem possible. So the basis for hope is it's possible. And when you asked, it's a long answer, but when you asked about this film, was it you who said it was a hopeful film? He was quoting somebody. And I would say it was, because it contradicts a very broadly held thing that people say to themselves to explain why they're not doing anything. And that is that it's impossible, that nothing will do any good, and that it can't work. This film shows that it's possible. You don't have that excuse. And moreover, even as an individual, without a huge movement at the time, the fact is that in this film, there is a raft of individuals. It isn't just me. I played a role in a sequence of events that actually helped shorten a war, one individual. But I wouldn't have done that without Randy Keeler, without Janaki Chanarl, without a lot of others, without a Mike Gravel in Congress.
I wouldn't have done it without you.
What?
I wouldn't have done it without you.
Okay, well, you see, he says he wouldn't have done it without me. This kind of thing is contagious. Courage is contagious. So when you do something like that, you have a chance of affecting other people, and you don't know who they will be or what the effect will be. But it isn't just the people well, some of them were in the film and weren't given credit for things they did. John Dean was in. His deciding to confront the president, not go quietly and take the blame for Watergate entirely, his decision to go against the White House, which took a lot of guts, it was crucial. But there were a lot of other people. Alex Butterfield in the White House chose to tell the truth about the taping. Without that, Nixon would have stayed in office for 2 more years. The bombing would have gone on for 2 more years, killing tens to hundreds of thousands of more people. That's true of each individual that you see here. Some that you didn't see, the Richardson refusing to fire Cox, Cox refusing to go quietly, Ruckelshaus refusing to fire Cox, making a Saturday night massacre which led unforeseeably to what they called a firestorm of protest to the White House that got their attention. It took one person going out would not have done it, but 3 in one night, something bad is going on here, and they had a storm of telegrams and telephone calls to Congress in that night, Saturday night, and that forced Nixon to appoint a new special prosecutor, which, as I say again, shortened the war. You saw the newsmen doing their thing. So the utmost then was that there was maybe a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen people, each of whom took an action at some risk that was essential. Without that, the war would have gone on. I was one of those. There were others. And each of you, I'll sum it all up. There's a good article today in the Post by Ann Hornaday talking about my background in decision theory. Well, the relation to this is this. It's wrong to say, as so many do, there's no chance that what I do will make any difference. This film, this story, proves that. It's possible. It's possible. It's not far from a guarantee. It's not even likely. But it can be done, and second, it can make a difference. It can affect things. So to say that it's impossible that there will be any effect is wrong. So I think that's hopeful. That's all the hope you need. As my friend Howard Zinn, who of course just died, was in this film. And what he was asked recently was, what is the basis for hope? And he said it pretty much in those terms. It's not true that you can be sure that we can't do anything. You can't be sure. There is basis there for uncertainty, and that should be enough when lives are at stake, as in this case. That should be enough to cause you to consider, at least, taking risks.
Thank you. I have one question that I want to ask that I didn't get a chance to because I've seen Rich before. And the question is twofold. One is, what prompted you to make the film? Because Dan has been out there protesting ad nauseum for years and years, getting locked up. He's a masochist, obviously. And so now with this film, the film has brought this now to the fore, to our attention, at a very crucial time. So my question to you, Rich, what caused you to make the film? What's the decision-making process for you and Judith to do the film?
Right. Well, it was twofold, and maybe one is political and one is personal.